This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we watch sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between.
This week, The Sixth Sense, Season 2, Episodes 2 and 9.
I think you may be more upset than you realize.
Oh, I'm sure I just imagined it.
But this time, you said you didn't see Lori. You saw your very own daughter.
Well, I'm certain that was because I'd been talking about her. She was on my mind. I'm sure that's all there was to it.
You do believe in ESP, in psychic phenomena?
I don't know. You see, I've never thought very much about it.
Well, you do believe that those who are very dear to us are really never very far away, even those who are no longer with us in the flesh.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast that would gladly let an Oscar winner host the show. I'm Luke, here's my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
I have a couple things, but first I'll mention something based on what you just said there. I know we're going to talk about it, the slight format change of this show. It's a little bit wild, and I was trying to think if there's anything like that that's ever happened in TV. I can't think of something. Can you think of something where they just are like, hey, the star of the show, you're no longer the star of the show. They're like, oh, so I'm fired. They're like, no. You're still here. You're just going to introduce the movie. You're like, oh, okay.
Well, I guess Night Gallery comes to mind, but I guess it wasn't the star before, so...
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing. And then the second thing is Jason, who's this like teen from this first episode. I've marked him down, and let's see if you agree with me. I think he's cinema's greatest villain. Isn't he?
Cinema's greatest villain? He did a good job, I will say that. I will say that working against, spoiler, Joan Crawford really elevated his game.
I agree. And I'll say this, I'm going to bear lead here. I think those are two pretty decent episodes.
Yeah, and I just since we're talking about it and you brought it up here, the idea of what we'll see in these episodes is Michael Rhodes will play, the lead character will play no part in any of them. They'll be standalone kind of episodes with two other actors sort of playing the lead characters, not Michael Rhodes, but just other characters. He'll never come into it. He kind of just bookends the show with a little introduction and ending. I was also surprised because, season 2, we're starting right now. I was like, wow, they changed the format so much. They didn't. He is in every other episode of the season. We just happened to
Except
watch.
for the ones we watched?
Yeah, we just happened to watch the 2 episodes where they decided to have a little bit of fun with the format. I think there's one more. There's actually one more where he does this, but for the other 9 episodes, it's all business as usual.
What's interesting about it is that he's not playing Dr. Michael Rhodes. It's not like someone's telling him a story. He's playing Gary Collins. He's playing himself, the actor who, by the way, in both these episodes, he talks to the lead actress, the guest star who's going to be in it. He talks to them about ESP as if he is an expert on it, and they do a short little preamble about their feelings on ESP. I'm like, what is this? It's so insane.
I loved it. I was like, great. I don't know what you've done here, but what a turn.
I liked it though. I actually think the show, and no offense to Gary Collins, but I think the show has a little bit more room to breathe when you don't have to shoehorn him and his investigation. Maybe you disagree with that, but I think this idea of more of an anthology thing of just interesting stories that may or may not have an investigative sort of angle, I think it's a stronger show.
Fair enough. Well, before we get into it, Jordan, why don't we talk a little about the actors on this and play a game called Who Did What? That's the song. So, of course, we have Gary Collins, who plays Dr. Michael Rhodes. We'll have him as our key, and then I'm just going to do guest stars after that. But before we get to the guest stars, Jordan, I just wanted to ask you a question. How well do you know Gary Collins as an actor, I guess, or as a celebrity?
Not well at all.
Well, I was shocked to learn that he has played himself as a cameo in 5 different TV series.
Really?
Yes. He's come on as Gary Collins in 5 different TV series.
Let me guess one.
Yeah, go for it.
Falcon's Crest.
No.
Okay.
I'll go through them here for you just so you can get a sense of them. There was an 1986 episode of Gimme a Break he was playing himself on.
Oh, I used to like Gimme a Break.
I had to look up what it was. I'd never heard of it before. He did a 1992 episode of General Hospital as himself.
Weird.
In 2003, he was in an episode of Dead Like Me as himself.
I forgot about that show. I never did see it.
In 1999, he was in an episode of Dharma and Greg as himself.
You know who also weirdly did a cameo in Dharma and Greg? Bob Dylan. True story.
And in the one that made me think he is a bigger star than we realize, in 1998, he played himself in Friends.
So weird. Maybe I missed the train on like Gary Collins and his stardom.
Yeah, just the number of times he's cameoed at, like, it's such a get that Gary Collins drops by to play himself that I'm just like, he's on Friends?
I'm surprised too, but maybe you and we've just missed it.
All right. At any rate, we'll get to the game now. So you've got your first guy is going to be Gary Collins, who plays Dr. Michael Rhodes. Another person you're going to be choosing from is William Shatner, who played Edwin Danbury.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got Ann Archer, who also was in the same episode playing Elizabeth Danbury, his wife. You know Ann Archer, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And then your favorite, Mike Farrell, who played Dr. Gil Clark.
Yeah, he is my favorite, yeah. B.J. Honeycutt himself.
Cloris Leachman, who played Judith Eaton.
Mm-hmm.
Joan Crawford, of course, from the first episode we'll watch today, who played Joan Fairchild.
Yeah.
And then from the second episode we'll watch today, I've got two people here. We've got Dennis Duggan, who played Bill Miller, who, that name probably won't ring a bell, so you're probably like, how's that a cameo?
Yeah, I don't know Dennis Duggan, but if you mentioned Jane Wyman, I have a tiny bit of knowledge of Jane Wyman.
Well, let's jump forward. I'm going to tell you why he's a cameo.
Okay.
Because Dennis Duggan, who plays Bill Miller in the second episode, is the director of the films Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy, I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, You Don't Mess with Zohan, Grown Ups 1 and 2, Just Go With It, and Jack and Jill. He's a Adam Sandler all-star director. Wow,
interesting. So he just, Adam Sandler's like, this is the guy. He just gets me. He lets me do whatever I want.
He gets all my friends together, we go have a nice time, Netflix puts it up, and I get paid $30 million.
I mean, good on him. That's a gig.
I've heard he's a very nice man too, so I like at least a person who's just enjoying himself is getting it.
Yeah, and he's just like, it's not like he clearly doesn't care about the critical acclaim. He's just like working and have a good time. Can't ask for more than that.
Just get your friends together, have a nice day
in Hawaii or wherever he's decided the next movie.
Exactly. And of course, as you mentioned there, the final actor you'll be choosing from is Jane Wyman, who played Ruth Ames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know a little bit about her, but not much. It's like one of those like, she was, I think she had her heyday in the 40s and 50s. So it's a little, some of those older movies I haven't really caught up with.
All right. Well, hopefully you can track all those actors, because here comes the roles they may have done. These are the random roles they may have been in.
Okay.
One of these actors was in 48 episodes of The Facts of Life from 1986 as a character named Stickle.
48 episodes in The Facts of Life?
Yes.
Well, I know it's not Shatner.
One of them played Dr. Brockton in a movie from 1970 called Trog.
That movie I like, Trog.
One of them played a character named Trimble in a 1979 movie called Unidentified Flying Oddball. One of them played a character called St. James in the 1945 movie The Lost Weekend.
Okay.
One of them played a character named Cordell in the 1974 film Houston, We've Got a Problem. One of them played Mark Twain in 2008 on Canada's Murdoch Mysteries.
I know who that's gotta be.
One of them played Gallagher in 1987's Fatal Attraction.
Really? Okay.
And finally, Jordan.
Yeah.
One of them played JFK in 1984's JFK, a one-man show.
Wow. Those were all really good picks, by the way. Let's go. Let me just pick a couple people and we'll get them out of the way. I think it was Shatner on Murdoch Mysteries.
Okay.
You had Fatal Attraction, right?
Yes.
I'd say Ann Archer.
Okay.
What was that 1940 something movie you called it?
The Lost Weekend.
Let's put Jane Wyman in there.
Okay.
And what was that really silly title you had? Bon Bon Time.
Is that Trog or Unidentified Flying Oddball?
A Flying Oddball, that's the one. I'm going to guess that's it's Dennis Dugan is his name, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what do I got left?
What you have left is 48 episodes of The Facts of Life. You've got Trog, and you've got 2 more. Houston, We've Got a Problem, and JFK, a one-man show.
I got 4 more actors?
Yes, those actors are Gary Collins, Mike Farrell, Cloris Leachman, and Joan Crawford.
Okay, I'm going to think Cloris Leachman did The Facts of Life.
Okay.
And I think Mike Farrell did Trog.
Farrell did Trog. All right.
And I have 2 more.
Yes, you've got... Sorry, I'm flipping my sheet around to find them all. Houston, We've Got a Problem, and JFK, a one-man show.
Okay, I'm going to think that old Gary Collins did the one-man show. And then what do I have left with Joan Collins?
Joan Crawford, your final
Joan
one
Crawford.
is Houston, We've Got a Problem.
Yeah, okay, sure. She should have done that. I said Joan Collins. Yeah, Joan Crawford there. Sure. I don't know. I feel like I started out strong and got and it just slowly got weaker.
Jordan, you did really well. That was 5 out of 8.
Oh, hey, that's not so bad.
William Shatner was on Murdoch Mysteries as Mark Twain.
Yeah. I mean, that was he's Canadian.
Ann Archer was in Fatal Attraction as Gallagher. Dennis Duggan was an unidentified flying oddball as Trimble. Cloris Leachman did do 48 episodes of The Facts of Life as Stickle.
Oh man,
and
I was
Jane
on
Wyman was in The Lost Weekend as St. James.
Okay, and so then what were the ones I missed?
Gary Collins was in Houston, We've Got a Problem. Mike Farrell played JFK in JFK, a one-man show.
That's so bizarre.
Track that down later and watch.
I will.
And Joan Crawford was Dr. Brockton in Trog.
Oh man, I'm sure it wasn't one of the ones she was mostly proud of.
There's what's his name? The guy who does all the American Horror Stories.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy.
Brian Murphy. He did a series called, I think it was Duel, or something like that. Duel Grudge, something about Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Yeah, it was really good.
And they dramatized Trog in that, so I thought if you'd seen it, you might have got it.
Oh, it's funny. I did see it, and I thought it was because he's sort of hit or miss. I'm like, wow, that's really good, or I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But I thought that was a really good show, but I don't remember Trog.
Late in her career, you see the actress who I forget. I'm going to forget everybody's name today. I'm not ready for this. You see her do a scene from Trog with a man in a caveman suit.
I should have got that. Anyways, but 5 out of 8, not bad.
No, you did really well. You came in really strong. You were like, bam, bam, bam. I know these ones.
Yeah. And did you know the one little bit of trivia? We'll say for episode 9, Jane Wyman. Do you know she was married to Ronald Reagan?
I did not know she was married to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, his first wife, her third husband. Yeah.
Wait, her third husband. Oh, I see. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. He was number 3, didn't last, and then he married Nancy after that. So there you go. For you historical president buffs.
So she could have been first lady?
Yeah, it could have been, but she didn't.
Wow.
She instead went on to a star in, what was it, 50 episodes of Facts of Life? What was she in? No, she was in that 40s movie.
Do you know which? Because she's an Oscar winner. Did you see which Oscar she won for?
I did. It was and I never saw the movie. I saw the synopsis of it. I was like, oh, this is dark. It's like she plays someone who's deaf, I believe, but I don't remember what the title of it was.
Now, Best Actress in the 1949 Oscars for the film Johnny Belinda.
Johnny Belinda. That's right. Yeah. You ever see that?
No, I've never heard of that movie.
Yeah, it's funny how things like that. I think there's like a big winner, and it's just like just lost to the sands of time.
Just like how I don't know anything about Green Book. What's that? Was that a real movie? I don't know.
I never saw it either.
Here is the IMDb summary for Season 2, Episode 2. Dear Joan, we're going to scare you to death. Joan Crawford plays a woman who stumbles upon a group of ESP enthusiasts who decide to use their abilities to scare her to death.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say off the bat, I said Jason, who's going to be, we're going to find out, the big spoiler, he's going to kind of be a villain later. I thought he was pretty good, like you said, and I thought Joan Crawford's really good. Like, I think probably these older actors and actresses doing these TV roles, it's not the highlight of their career, but you can tell that they both are like giving it, and at least it's like a meaty part for them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they get almost all the screen time, and they get to do crying and screaming and emoting everything you want to do. So I'm like, there's at least something for them to do, as opposed to, I'm sure, some of the roles that they were getting at that point in their career.
No, for sure. And I mean, this is Joan Crawford's final role. I saw somewhere that she got paid $3,500 for it, which I was like, I just think that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that translates to from whatever year this was, 1970, whatever.
But I mean, if you're getting like a star, I think this is probably I don't know. I was watching it and she's really like crushing it, and I'm just like, how sad for her that this is where her career ends.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different time, right? Now, if you have like a movie star in a TV show, it's like, ooh, prestige TV. But that's not the feeling you get here. But regardless, that aside,
yeah, she's killing it though. That's the key, is she's killing it. Yeah,
she's great in this. So she's driving at night. It's she's driving, she can't see something, and then she sees it's like a dog on the road. So she swerves to not hit the dog, but what ends up happening is she crashes her car. So she's like in the middle of kind of nowhere. It's bad weather, and she goes to kind of, she hears a voice, right? That's what's sort of like, while she's there, she starts hearing like a voice, and she's like, that's weird. So she does what I would not do.
And she starts having her asthma attack because she's got bad asthma.
Yeah, she's having an asthma attack. She investigates the noise. Would you, if you're there, you're in the middle of nowhere, you crash and you hear like someone being like, whoa, come over here. I'd be like, nope, stay in the car.
What if they need your help, Jordan? You're a good Samaritan.
I can't see anything. Sorry.
But yes, the Whisper turns into a psychic vision, per usual. It's a capsized boat and a drowning woman, and we'll soon come to reveal that this is affecting her so badly. Why her asthma's attacking so badly is because her own daughter has recently drowned. Her husband had died sometime earlier, so she's a bit of a widow with a dead daughter. And the manner of seeing this drowned woman really causes her to just like flip out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of like the thing. And you're right, the asthma is an important thing because it becomes a little bit of a plot point that she has this breathing problem. So that's the cold open. Then we have to mention it, Luke, the new opening credits for the show.
Brand new opening credits. A bald mannequin being a creep floating in outer space. It's actually really good. I really liked it.
I thought it was great too. 10 out of 10 for the new opening. Creepy song. You have no idea what this is supposed to invoke. It's just like this green, you're right, mannequin head sort of floating in space, and then it's floating in the sky, and it's like a light on its head, and then it's like in water, and you're like, what? And they're like, Sixth Sense. You're like, okay, great. I guess I'm watching.
It might be too much to say they've righted the ship this season, but they've certainly fixed a lot of things.
I agree, because the opening credits were like, they were just like, it wasn't even that they were bad. They just like, they weren't evocative of what the show was supposed to be, which was like kind of creepy and paranormal. And it's like, well, no, they're not doing that at all. But then we go to
building. It was just a building in a university, and it just said Sixth Sense, I guess.
It's pretty close. So then as we go, we see we cut to Gary Collins telling us he won't be in the episode, which just made me laugh. He's just like, anyways, guys, I know you're waiting to see me. I'm not going to be in this. I'm just going to watch with you because Joan Crawford, ain't she great? And then we go back to the stuff happening.
I did really like. He's like, I'm just going to watch it with you. Have a little Sixth Sense and chill, you guys.
Yeah. So, but this is how it gets set up. You know, classic. She's crashed on the side of the road. It's in the middle of nowhere. She sees a big old house as she's following this voice and this vision. She sees a big house, and so she shows up to it to be like, maybe these people can help me. And what's in is, I'm gonna assume they're a bunch of teenagers, but because it's the 1970s, everyone looks about 40 years old.
They explain it. They're college kids. Because what we've come to find out is the woman who owns the house is there's like kind of 5 of them, 4 college kids and this older woman. One of the college kids is her niece. She also, like Joan Collins, has recently lost her like kind of husband, so she has no one. The niece has been coming around, started bringing her college friends with her, and so it's kind of like a weird circle of people there where there's kind of like a middle-aged woman and 4 college kids, and one of those college kids is a deaf girl named Lori, who like is also just kind of wandering around. It's a weird setup. It takes a while to figure out who everyone is, but that eventually becomes clear. It's like, these are who these people are.
Yeah, and comparing and contrasting the two episodes, because we'll obviously talk about the next episode, there are some similarities with how these kind of play out. I actually would argue the next episode does it a little bit better, because this one we're going to find out very soon why she's seeing visions and how this sort of happening. Like we talked about in a previous podcast where I think I complained that I didn't like how much they kind of told you up front, and they don't quite do it in this episode, but they sort of do let you know what's happening, let the viewer know what's going to be happening, and that she's not sort of crazy, which is what she sort of thinks through this episode. Whereas I think in this second episode we're going to talk about, they sort of leave the mystery till the very end for you to figure out. Whether it's as satisfying or not, I'm not sure, but I do like the latter style of storytelling better for two very similar stories.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. There's similar stories. Like, there's like literally, it's like one person with 5 other characters of limited use. They're just somewhat there to fill out scenes. I would say in this one, I would say at least for this one, they don't try to hide it, because very quickly what we come to find out is this group of people has been trying to run experiments on ESP, essentially. By the end of the episode, we'll figure they'll throughout it, and they kind of just tease information out. But what we very early see them doing, like an ESP seance-y kind of thing. Later, we'll come to learn they'd come there to run it on the deaf girl Lori. They're just trying to see if they can use ESP to contact someone. They're like all focusing their minds on one idea, and these experiments. What we'll come to learn is that they were doing it on Lori because they know Lori's afraid of water. Her parents also drowned, so she has a fear of it. So they've been just projecting the concept of drowning, hoping that deaf Lori, because she's deaf, would have heightened ESP ability. And they could, they just seem to be trying to prove that ESP exists or that you can do something with it.
Wouldn't you argue it's never quite clear exactly what their goal is until like at the end? Because you're right, they're talking about like Lori and they're gonna test on her and stuff. And I was like, one, the morality of that aside, because it's pretty horrible. But I'm like, are you trying to prove that it exists, or that you can harness this as a power, or that you can do more than you originally thought? I wasn't quite sure what their actual definite goal was.
Yeah, you kind of have to take their word for it as they talk about it. My understanding was they were just playing around with it. It was kind of fun in games, and they had brought Lori because they thought she'd be more receptive. And they are very immoral. They're an immoral group. Like their original concept is to project her greatest fear, because they figured that'll be the thing that she's most receptive to. And what has happened in this is, I don't think, my understanding is they haven't had much luck with it up till now. But when Joan Crawford drives by, she's just so like, apparently she is a psychic, like I guess Dr. Collins has these psychic latent tendencies, and she picks up on this. And so when they bring her into the house, they're like, well, this lady clearly, we accidentally found someone who was very receptive to what we were trying to do in our little like ESP seance. So let's try to utilize that to really push the envelope, see if we can really affect her with ESP. They like steal a picture of her daughter out of her purse so they can like make it more personalized kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it is this weird thing where it's just like they're pretty amoral to begin with. As you said, Paul, I believe that's his name. He's like he's basically a sociopath. He has no problem. He'll do anything to anyone. And as the episode continues, what his goal is becomes clearer and clearer. He's just like, you know what? To really prove we can do this, we should scare her to death.
Yeah, I'll just pick one. It's Jason who's the bad one. Paul's the guy who's a little bit unsure of things, who's just like, guys, is this what we're doing? We're trying to kill someone. But yes, but Jason is, it's to the point where like it escalates where he's like, you know what, this is working really well. What if we get her to kill herself? You're like, oh, what? That was a leap. Anyways, as again, Jason, cinema's greatest villain.
Yeah, but as you said, like, why they're doing it, it just seems to be they're just like a group of people who are just like, they're like more closer to the Manson family or something. They're just like, sure, what if we did kill someone?
Well, the older lady, I can't remember what her name is, whatever, Diana, I think it is. She's just like at one point, like, I think was being somewhat truthful when Joan walks in on them and is like, I saw you guys doing like a seance type thing. That's what it looked like. They were like, yeah, we're really into the ESP thing. Like, there's not much to do out here in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, yeah, there's probably some truth to what they're saying, right? There's just like they're started being bored and having nothing to do.
Yeah, that's what I felt too. I felt like there was a group of teens who were, playing with a Ouija board. It was fun. They met this loopy aunt who was lonely at this great house in the middle of nowhere, and this is where they started spending their weekends just like messing around, right? And then Joan sort of came into it. But that's sort of where I think we're beginning is that, they bring Joan in, they treat her really well. She doesn't realize that she's kind of walked into this seance thing, and they sort of give her a room in the house because it's late, no taxis will come out. And when she tries to go to bed, she's like something tormented with images of her drowned ghost daughter appearing, it's being like, "Mommy, I'm cold, give me a hug." And, it's scary enough. And Joan, we know, has asthma. So every time she sees the ghost, she starts like, hyperventilating and having an asthma attack.
Yeah. It's a real chance to act. She could be like, "Oh, I'm acting." You're like, "Well done. You're very good."
She does a very good job. Like, it's such a silly premise, and she's like giving it so much emotion. Like, everyone on the show has to like really elevate their game when she's on the screen.
Yeah. No, and she is good. And it's weird how sort of things work out, because I wasn't sure how much was planned and how much was them sort of just rolling with it, because one of the next things we get is that we meet Laurie more because she comes into Joan's room to get her sweater, right? And this is the image that she realizes she puts at least the first thing together, the 2 and 2. She's like, "Wait, I've seen that sweater in my vision. Is it Laurie that was drowning?" But then I was like, did they purposely put that sweater there because they wanted her to have that image, or was she actually just getting an image of what was going to be happening in the future?
Well, I think that was just a coincidence, because the original, when she crashed the car, what she saw, that drowning person, wasn't her daughter. It was just a person drowning in a sweater, and that's where she's getting this from. But that image was aimed at Laurie, so what she's seeing is like she'd seen Laurie in that initial premonition drowning.
Right.
Because that's what they were projecting at Laurie, trying to like see if they could connect to her brain. It's you really have to kind of depack it later. Like it does also more or less connect. It's just it's also odd. It takes a while to like figure out how it all connects.
Yeah, you're right. I wasn't sure till you just said that. I thought it was sort of like, I was like, "Oh, did they plan this?" But you're right. They were already projecting on Laurie. I'd forgotten that they were trying this on two different people.
Yeah, and so she sees Deaf Laurie, and she's like, "Deaf Laurie, that's a terrible name for her, but this deaf girl Laurie." And she's just like, "I need to like warn her about, I saw her drowning in that flashback before my ghost daughter started appearing. I should probably tell this girl that something's up here." And by this point in the episode, Joan's like happened to walk by and like catch a glimpse of them doing their weird ESP seance. So she's like already kind of like pretty freaked out being in this house. She doesn't really trust these people, but she feels a kinship to Laurie because it reminds her of her daughter. And she goes to talk to her in Laurie's room, and they have a chat. Laurie can read lips, so that you have normal conversations essentially in this episode between the deaf character and all the other characters. But they discuss her water-based traumas of her parents dying. They discuss how like Laurie knows everyone from college and they're all friends, and everyone's Laurie assures them it's like everyone's kind, they're not really that bad here. And then as Laurie's like talking Joan down, Paul barges into the room, throws Joan out, and just starts slapping Laurie around. He's such a bad guy.
Jason. I don't want you to say anything bad about Paul. It's Jason.
Is it Jason? Why do I have their names switched here?
Yeah, it's Jason. And Jason, Jason starts, he just starts smacking her. And it's like, well, that seemed to be out of the blue. But it's funny. He's like reprimanding her, and it's specifically for talking to Joan, because he doesn't want these two people talking, because he doesn't want them figuring out kind of what they've been doing. And then it's like, what's her face? I guess it's just she keeps having these visions, and she has such a strong vision of her daughter Joan that she faints. And what I like is she wakes up and it's just all these teenagers just standing above her, just watching her. I'm like, if you weren't creeped out before, I think you would be creeped out then if you woke up and everyone's just staring at you.
Well, that's kind of what's nice about it is very quickly they don't like hide it for Joan's character. She's creeped out pretty early on. Like she walks in on an early seance right after she's had a vision. They give those, as you said, they give some lame excuses about it's just a fun parlor game they play. But she's on to them pretty quickly, but has no way out.
Yeah, that's a good point to make though, because they said at the beginning like, oh, there's no way to take a taxi, and she sort of throughout the episode is trying to call someone for help, but for various reasons isn't able to do it because she knows something's funny. And like it, like what, no one will come pick them up a taxi. No police will come. It's like they're clearly like low-key kidnapping her,
100%. And you're right. After this sort of second attack they do on her where she passes out, she wakes up. They're all standing over top of her. And, if it wasn't clear before, they're like, we're taking your phone. We see you tried to call a taxi before we made you pass out. And I believe why they're standing over is they're come to check if they've managed to kill her this time. But they haven't. She's not dead yet. They take the phone. They lock her in the room. And they're like, all right, this is it, you guys. And like, there's a bit of objection amongst the group. Like, some of them are like, is this okay to do? But as you said, Jason is such a strong, like, Svengali-esque leader. He kind of just like bullies them into like going along with killing this woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He makes a good point though. What jury is going to convict them?
Yeah, it's right. He does make it. He's like, look, she's gonna do this. We're gonna scare her to death. What they're gonna have to be able to. What are they gonna call? Like some sort of Dr. Michael Rhodes in to get into the court case and convince them of ESP and that you would kill someone doing that? That would never fly.
Well, he didn't show up to this one, so they don't have to worry. But as they go back down, and as this conversation is happening about whether or not they should actually go through with this, Lori comes by. She lip reads the conversation they're having, and she's like, "Oh, I gotta go help that Joan woman who's up in that room." She goes up there, but she can't get in because the door's locked. And she talks through the door. She basically tells Joan through the door, I'm going to go outside. There's a boat out back of the house. There's a little like lake out there. I can take the boat. I can go get help. And, Joan is freaked out because she had that vision of her drowning, and she's yelling at the door like, don't go, Lori, don't go. But of course, as we know, she's deaf. She can't hear any of this is happening. And now sort of Joan has this thing where she's like, she needs to find a way out of there so she can stop Lori from drowning now. Like she knows Lori's going to get in that boat and drown. And that's sort of where the stakes sort of ratchet up.
Mm-hmm. And what I thought was funny, and it's I mean, what are you gonna do? Is that the Lori, who we've mentioned is deaf, she goes up to the door and she like knocks on the door. She's like, "Hey, Joan, can you hear me?" And then she's waiting, and I was like, "Well, there's a problem in your plan right here because you can't hear her response." But it actually works in terms of the tension because Joan is responding. She's like, "Yes, I can hear you," and then she's like, "Anyways, I'm gonna go take the boat." She's like, "Don't take the boat, don't take the boat," and she's like, "Can't hear anything. Anyways, off to the boat.
Hope you're there. Bye." But the rest of the group hears Joan shouting upstairs, like screaming at the door. And Jason goes up to check on her and finds that Joan has slipped a note under the door, attempting to stop Lori from taking the boat. Like she's written, "Don't take the boat, Lori," and slipped it under the door, hoping that Lori might see it before she walked away. So he gets it. He now knows Lori's about to take the boat. So he goes out back and catches Lori as she's like climbing into this like old like kind of rowboat with an outboard motor. And, he's just such a villain. He like pulls that outboard motor off, grabs the paddles, pushes Lori into the boat, and then just sets it adrift in the lake. And it's like, it's leaking. So like she's in there. It's like just a slow leak.
It's more than that. He took part of the pole that you use to pull like the line in, and it's sharp at the end. He punctured the boat with it. That's before he did it. When he was pulling it in, he punctured it with the thing. So it's like, oh, not only am I going to push you out to sea, but like you're going to drown.
Well, this is a murder he can be caught for.
That's true. But I mean, who's she going to tell?
I guess so. I guess that's true. But it's kind of nice. The stakes keep rising. Lori's out there. She's having a panic attack because this is her worst fear is drowning. So it's kind of where we leave things. And Joan can kind of see all of this from her bedroom window. So like all the stakes are set and raised. And now that it's sort of set up, the group comes back in and they're preparing their final psychic attack. And it is the best one of the episode. Is like they have the ghost daughter materialize. It's pretty creepy. I've never seen this before, but like the ghost is like that, that classic transparent, like cheap ghost you can do where you shoot it once and then shoot it twice. But the daughter comes in and tries to give Joan a hug. I've never seen one of those transparent ghosts try to give someone a hug before. I really like that.
You know what? I actually forgive all the special effects. I thought it looked fine for what it was. I was like, great, ghost, got it.
No, I think they did a nice job with the limited effects. I thought they looked good. Joan, of course, starts having another asthma attack, but this time she has a plan. She goes into the bathroom, the ensuite bathroom to her room, and turns on the shower and sort of steams up the shower so she can like breathe a bit better to help her from passing out this time. And they still get one last pretty fun, campy but fun scare gag where as she's doing it, her ghost daughter appears and then her skeleton hand reaches out and grabs her, and then like it pans up, and there's a skeleton wearing a really wet wig, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good.
Well, it was good. I actually thought that was it was a pretty clever scene of her to be like, utilize what's available, and it was like, it's the shower, so she could do that. It also it creates a nice foggy effect, so it's hard to see her when she wants to escape.
And the group, they finish the seance, and as they've done the last time, they've come up to see if they finally killed Joan. And they come into the room, they hear the shower running, so they walk into the shower to see if she's in there. And Joan has been hiding behind the door to the room. It's actually quite clever. Mm-hmm. And she just like slips out, locks the door, and locks them inside.
Yeah, it's great.
And of course, that's not going to hold them long. They're quite burly college kids or teenagers, depending on what you want to guess their ages as. And they bust out and start searching the house for her. She's kind of running from room to room, hiding behind curtains, and they're freaking out. They gotta find her and stop her before she gets out of here. And this is the moment when one of the college kids, he catches Joan. She's like hiding behind a curtain, and he has a change of heart. I guess this is Paul. This is the Paul character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he kind of lets her go. She grabs a phone. She's able to call the police, and there's a big... Joan doesn't have the final confrontation. This Paul character confronts Jason about like what he's been doing, and they have a classic. They fist fight their way up a set of stairs to the second floor, and then like Paul gets the upper hand and throws Jason off the balcony. And I did like this though. Jason falls one floor, and usually someone just gets up from that in TV, but he like breaks his leg and can't stand up. I'm like, that's pretty good.
I know it's not quite sure what his injury is. I thought it was like he broke his ribs or whatever, but he just sort of like lays there in pain. I was like, yeah, well that does look like it hurts.
Yeah, I was like, if I fell off the second floor of a house, I would definitely just break a hip, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah, I did like though that like you have this guest star. It's Joan Crawford. You need to have a big action scene. She's not going to be in the fight clearly, so it's like, let the two dudes fight it out. And I was like, yeah, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. While this is happening, Joan has gone back up to her room where she can see out into the lake. She's called the police, but there's no way for her to get to Laurie now. She's in the middle of the lake, it's sinking. And Joan finally uses her latent psychic abilities for herself. Like, it's been used against her up till now, and now she starts like she's rubbing her temple, and it's my favorite part is she's just like talking to Laurie in the boat, and she keeps saying, "Turn around, Laurie, there's just a life vest right behind you, Laurie, just turn around." And Laurie eventually just like turns around, she's like, "Oh, there was a life vest here the whole time."
Yeah, I was like, Laurie, you gotta at least check your surroundings.
I mean, I thought it was shot pretty well. Like, we've established she's so freaked out by water. So I forgave her that this woman's having like a massive panic attack. She can't think straight. But it was very funny to just be like, just turn around. There's a life vest right there.
And that's pretty much it before like the quick little like they're like, oh good, she's saved, the everything's been resolved, and then before we have like the little final like recap of like what happened. And I like it because it's like Laurie and Joan talking, and Laurie's just like, anyways, they used me because of my deafness. Like, well, that tracks.
What I liked is we cut to it. The police are arresting everyone, which I guess there's evidence of like an attempted murder, I guess, with Laurie, but they're not arresting Paul. They've like Paul gets to stay, and I'm just like, well, up till now he's been party to all of this crime, but well, I guess like, because he changed sides.
Well, no, because the police were gonna put the handcuffs on him. He was like, whoa. I was ambivalent the whole time. They're like, all right, we'll let you go.
Yeah, I just thought that was very funny because I'm like, I think one or two of the other people in this group could probably make the same claim.
Yeah, you think the police would just arrest them all and let the courts handle it, but not in these small towns.
Let the courts handle this psychic attack.
and then we say, so that's like the episode done, and then we sort of, as you said, so bookended from the beginning. We have Gary Collins talking to Joan Crawford and talking about the ESP dream she had about her dog dying.
I really like this. It's so good. It comes back. Gary Collins is at his, like, the desk he has is the standing set. He's just like, wasn't that a great episode? Let's go hang out with Joan Collins now. And he gets up and he walks over, and Joan Collins is just sitting on the couch in this office. And yeah, they just like, let's have a chat. And Joan's just like, Gary, I'm a big fan of The Sixth Sense. And I'm just like, there's the most acting you've done all episode.
Yeah, I know. And she's just like, he's like, wasn't that great? She's like, I did love doing this episode of the television show. We're like, all right, Joan, you're laying a little thick. But then she's like, he's like, what do you think about ESP? She's like, I don't know if I know anything about ESP, but let me tell you, one time I had a dream my dog was going to die by, didn't she say it was like falling off the balcony or something like that?
Yeah, she had a dream her dog was falling and she was trying to catch it.
Right. And then the next day her dog fell off the balcony and died. And she's like, so, I don't know, ESP?
It didn't die. It didn't die.
I thought it did die.
No, she said the next day her dog fell 30 feet between the wall and the free-flying staircase in her apartment. And she's like, it was fine.
I thought it died. I thought she was telling a humorous story at the time her dog died.
No, she assured everyone it was fine. And like they're like, interesting. And they both like it concludes by being like them agreeing that like, you know what? ESP's probably a thing, right? Probably.
I love it. It's two actors being like, probably a thing, right? They're like, anyways, we have no authority, but there you are. Commercials.
I did like the capper though, is that I think she asked Gary like, what about you? Do you have an ESP? And like he turns to the camera and says, well, if I do, I'll use it to get you back on the show soon.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, right, Gary.
It was good. I really enjoyed it. It happens in both these episodes. I really enjoyed the weird pre-cap where he's just like, I'm not in this one, but let's all sit back and enjoy it. And then coming back and just having a weird little interview about ESP with the lead actors. Great. What a great idea. I love it.
I love it too. Can you imagine we were watching like a show, we were watching like Tech War, and then just like William Shatner comes in, he's like, hey, I'm not in this episode, but anyways, you wouldn't believe what Tom Selleck is doing in this episode.
Well, that's weird. And they come back and they're like, Tom, I think VR is going to be a big thing in the future.
And he's like, I don't know. All I know is I like guns.
All right, Jordan, let's move on. Here's the IMDb summary for Season 2, Episode 9, If I Should Die Before I Wake.
But what if the storm didn't happen today? What if it happened a month ago or even a year ago?
Well, then I'd say you were having,
Hallucinations? No. I was meant to see what is happening in this house.
Mother, there couldn't have been a murder in this house. If there had been, we would have heard about it, a legend or something.
When she returns to her old home, Ruth Ames begins to see visions, including that of her long-dead daughter, Mindy.
Yeah, so even you could just hear from the synopsis that you just read that these have some real similarities. I know it's like we're watching episode 2 and 9, so it's not like they were like week after week, but it is funny to like bring back an older movie star, lead female actor, and have a very, very similar plot of having them both be sort of traumatized by the death of their daughter.
Yeah, that's true. There's the trauma of the death of the daughter. It's kind of odd because all of these Sixth Sense episodes I was thinking about it, I think all of them have even when Dr. Michael Rhodes there, they all have a lead character who's a woman who's being troubled by psychic visions. So it's also like the trope, I don't think there's been an episode where it wasn't a woman troubled by psychic visions.
I think you're right. I didn't really think of that. I think you are right.
So while you're right, like it's like they're very similar plot points. Like how this one plays out is quite a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the whole trope of this is always the same. It's always like, I guess they're just like women are more sensitive to ESP, so we couldn't have a man have ESP.
I think probably also part of it, now that you say it, is maybe also that the other characters, just through societal implications, are less likely to believe a woman when she was telling people something like, I'm seeing this thing's happening. They're like, all right, sweetheart, be quiet, sort of thing. Maybe it wouldn't have had the same effect if it was a man.
That's true, because that is often what the plot of these episodes are. And I mean, I guess in the ones where Gary Collins is in it, where Dr. Michael Rhodes appears, you already have a male lead, so you know, in all circumstances of this era, you got to pair him with a lady, or what are you doing? Yeah.
Well, this one starts a little different. We have Ruth Ames, who's going to be our lead in this, played by Jane Wyman. She's in like it's a cemetery, but it looks like it's a rural cemetery. But as they pull out, you see she's looking at a grave. You assume it's a grave of her daughter, but you see it's not actually a cemetery. It's like I think it's like a family plot that's right off of their house in this country house, sort of like a very old-fashioned way to do, you know, people burying on the property. So she's there.
Yeah, very Little House on the Prairies.
Yeah, right. And she's looking at this grave, and then
It's pretty sad, that grave, though, eh? It's because they show it. It's Mindy, and she passed away. Like, she lived from 52 to 80, or 60. I mean, so it's like they're showing the grave of an 8-year-old. I'm like, whoa, this is a really sad start to this episode.
Yeah, and again, to say something for the actress Jane Wyman, doing a great job of, right away she's still distraught at what has happened. Clearly, you can tell from the first scene that she hasn't let it go. And what you're going to find is this is the house where the daughter had died. And she had a second daughter years later. I can assume, or she at least had another daughter. I don't know if it's the older or younger daughter, but they had moved away because of this tragedy. Something at one point happened to her recently. Either her husband died or she divorced him. I don't think they say explicitly. Maybe I'm wrong.
They do. What it was is they moved away 10 years ago and haven't returned. They went to New York City. And now her husband just passed away, so she's given up they've sold their New York home. She's moving back here to be closer to their original family, and as becomes clear, to be closer to her dead daughter.
Yeah. So she sort of says, like, she talks around like, this was the house I always loved, and I wanted to come back here. But it becomes very clear that, like, she hasn't ever gotten over this death, and she wants to be closer to the daughter. So that's sort of what you kind of what underscores everything. But this starts with her sort of coming in. This guy named Billy shows up. Bill, who, like, I don't know, I didn't exactly know how that worked. He was from the bank or the real estate company or something, but he's basically there to, like, give her the keys to let her back into her home that has been no one's lived in it. It's just been, like, shuttered. And I like that they've been gone for 10 years. They just, like, put like you only see in movies, people, they put, like, blankets over all the furniture, just be like, all right, at least it's not going to get dusty.
It's true. Yeah, Bill's kind of like bringing her back. He's apologizing. The electricity hasn't been turned back on. She's kind of come back suddenly. No one was expecting her to return. And you're right. I think his family has been taking care of the property, or, like, just, like, looking after it. That's the idea behind it. And like, before the cold open ends, she'll be going into the house with the key and being like, well, Bill, I'd like to be alone for a bit. And he's like, no problem. And as she's grabbing the key, the poorly secured, like, giant diamond and studded golden heart brooch she's wearing falls off, and Bill looks down. He's like, whoa, that's quite the expensive piece of show jewelry you've worn to the country. And she's like, oh yes, I wear my best jewelry when I come back to visit my dead daughter.
You're like, I wonder if that would be important later.
It was such a weird cutaway that you're like, well, I guess I better track that information. But that's sort of that's the cold opening. I did want to ask Jordan, though. You've got a nice country house. Not quite the prairies, but pretty close. What do you think, family plot? You going to start one?
I'll tell you a little secret. I'll tell you what is buried on my property are 2 ducks.
2 ducks. It's already started. The family plot's begun.
Yeah, that's the family plot. They're only marked with a rock, but if you come over, I'll show you where they are.
You know what it means. It's part of the tour.
It's not the first thing on the tour, but it's along the tour. Yeah, I'm like, anyways.
It's one of the highlights.
That's right.
Well, she goes inside the house, and very quickly, we go into the haunted house kind of trope. She hears a girl crying "mama" from a room. A rubber ball bounces down a set of stairs all creepily, and then, like, out of nowhere, a storm sets in. It's just like the electricity pops back on. Something's off. She's like having an ESP, because we know the show. She's having some sort of ESP vision, and then she hears screams upstairs and sees a shadowy man beating someone with a shovel. And then it all vanishes. It all goes away. It goes back to the way the house was before. And we're like, ooh, this is going to be our ESP mystery this week.
Yeah, and this is sort of the thing that you'll see this same sort of thing recurring. Like, you'll see the ball several times. You'll see these plants that have been knocked over, and a few images of this shadow figure sort of attacking. You'll see them over and over and over. But I thought it was a pretty good setup, because at first I was like, oh, is this going to be the, like, mystery of her daughter? It's like, no, that's just a reason that she's there. It's going to be something else entirely.
Yeah, it's a nice little setup. And, obviously we have a little cutaway. Gary Collins introduces the episode, says, hey, I'm sitting out. We got an Oscar winner to come in and do the show this week. So I guess I'm not allowed on set. Do you think they just didn't want to act with him? They're just like, I'll do it. No Gary Collins.
I think it was just a money thing. They're like, Gary, we can't pay you an episode this week, so you're just going to record a bunch of these that you were so excited to not be working, and then we're just going to air them, as needed.
We're giving them each $3,500.
Yeah.
Two of the best actresses in our nation. We're giving them enough to pay probably a month's rent on whatever their mansion is. Gary, you get $50 for coming in to do the intro.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Do your own makeup.
Anyway, they go back to the story. Ruth's other daughter arrives, Jean, and she's there with her boyfriend. I didn't catch his name, but someone just refers to him as a ball player. So I think he's a Major League Baseball player.
I loved him. He couldn't look more 70s. I didn't write down his name either. I just wrote husband. But he's just like, he's a dude with like long hair and a big long mustache. And he's like, I don't know, he's wearing like in my memory, it was like a leather jacket with tassels. He looks like a prototype man from the 1970s.
He's great. I just love that he was like referred to as ball player. And this time I'm just like, oh, I'd love to see what team he plays for. I want to hear more about his stats. What's going on with his baseball player? But yes, they're there to help Ruth move back in. You know, they're a little worried. Jean's mother just died. Ruth's husband. She's very suddenly decided to move back here. And Jean knows the real reason. Like, Jean's known her mother for a long time. She knows she's always been pining over this dead daughter. So she knows like that's kind of an unhealthy reason she's moved back here. But it's very funny. Jean and her mom clearly have a strained relationship right away because they arrive. They're like, we're going to help mom move in, but we're also leaving this afternoon. We're not sticking around. We're going to leave this afternoon. Baseball player needs to get back for a photo shoot he needs to do. They set a timeline very quickly. Just like, we're only here for a few hours. We'll get her some groceries. I love my mom, but like, she's too obsessed with this. And like, there's this kind of like tension of just like, family strain, but also worried about the mother's mental health kind of thing.
I thought it was pretty well done. Like if it was like a more of a modern TV, they would have had probably a scene where you would have had them have an argument or something to really show the tension between the two. But they sort of just leave it subtly, like you said. Like there's just like, yeah, I'm here to help you. Anyways, we're not staying long. You know, implying that like I'm not even going to get into it with you. I'm just going to be here really quick. Because the mom was like, she's like, oh, you're not going to stay for dinner? Like I just arrived. They're like, nope. We're on our way.
No, thank you. But as they're kind of helping her set up, Ruth is kind of exploring the house and having more and more supernatural encounters. The old rusted carousel in the back, which hasn't moved in years, starts spinning around. She finds a room with someone crying "Mama" inside. When she goes inside, there's a gigantic Raggedy Ann doll under the covers.
I love that. It was just like, because you get that image of her walking in a room and there's like clearly someone under the cover. She's like, oh no, what is it? But when she pulls it, it's a doll. I'm like, I don't think the doll would have made that exact human body figure under the sheets, but sure, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly too, like she turns around and like standing in a doorway in the shadows is her dead like 8-year-old daughter. It's like, they're not really like, they're like, these creepy things are happening. Like she'll go down to the basement at some point and there'll be an open grave she sees. And then when she looks away, it's gone kind of thing. So they spend a lot of time sort of building these like supernatural things that only Ruth is seeing. Mm-hmm. So that sort of sets Ruth up. And then they just start introducing, which, you know, we've talked about this, a little bit of a flaw of the show, but they just started introducing more and more characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I think the next character is what's his name? The groundskeeper, right? His name is...
well, kind of who comes in first is there's the family friend and lawyer, Aaron, an older guy who I guess lives in town and kind of knows the family. And he's there to introduce the other characters. He's just like, you remember Bill, the man from the opening? And she's just like, Bill, how are your parents? And Aaron's like... Oh, that's really uncomfortable. They were burnt so badly in a fire last year they're in a nursing home. You really put your foot in your mouth.
No, I love it. But what the scene is she says, hey, hope your parents are well. And he just gives a dirty look and walks off. And it's not until Aaron is like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Because yes, his parents were horribly burned. And he's like, and really, they should be dead with the pain they're in. Anyways, the power should be on about 6 o'clock. But what I like is like that's not the like. Let's say you've had this horrible tragedy. Your parents have had this thing. I wouldn't go off in a huff if someone asked how they're doing. You either say not well and you explain it, or you say they're fine because you don't want to have the conversation. You don't go in a huff and then like kick some dirt and walk off. I'm like, Bill, come on now.
Yeah. I mean, that is what you do currently when people ask how your parents are, but they're alive and well.
I do not. No, I say they're busy on the tour right now looking at the dead ducks.
And then and then he sort of introduced the other character, Sam, the old groundskeeper, which is also very funny. They're like, the old groundskeeper Sam, and she's like, who are you? And it's like, you don't remember the old groundskeeper Sam? And she's just like, oh, I do vaguely remember you. It's just so weird. Like, she's met these people and, like, knows nothing about them.
Yeah. And Sam is, I think we're supposed to, as an audience, believe he's either a little bit slow or he's a little bit peculiar or awkward. There's something that's a little bit, I don't mean this to be insensitive, but there's something a little bit off with him, or at least there is in the actor's choice that he's done. Would you agree with me?
This is really weird. I also agree. When you meet him, I was like, oh, they're definitely presenting him as developmentally disabled. He's just like kind of got that, you know, for lack of a better term, he's just doing Tom Hanks's Forrest Gump, essentially. Or at least that's what it seems like initially.
Yeah.
Because he's just talking slow and that stuff. And then they ask him another question, and he just responds normally as if there's nothing wrong. And I'm just like, wait, I can't. So, like, sometimes the actor is playing it one way, and then sometimes he's just playing it normal. And I could not get the sense of what that. So I think you're right. They're aiming for him to being like slightly peculiar, but they never really settle on how or why. He's just kind of like a tall guy who's a little quiet.
Yeah, I think they want sort of like a Boo Radley type thing. Like, he's this kind of quiet, you're unsure about him sort of person. But yeah, it's to an effect, because I think you as a viewer are supposed to be like, oh, maybe because he's weird, he's guilty of something, or he's done something, right? That's what they're kind of playing with a little bit.
Yeah, they want a good red herring. I think Boo Radley's a good example. Like, he's definitely going to fill that role of just like, is he slow? Is he not? But we're definitely going to pin a crime on him kind of idea.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Anyway, we sort of get all these characters in play, and very quickly, Ruth just tells everyone about the visions she's having. So, like, we have a big parlor scene where everyone's gathered to hear about, like, what she's been seeing. And, you know, they go look around the house. We find out, like, there's no grave in the basement. That carousel's never run. Like, all those things to set up the idea that, like, what she's seeing isn't real. Just like there was a pipe we replaced in the basement, so it's not a grave at all. Like, the square of cement you see is just normal down there, and it's all this stuff sort of is laid out to be like, don't worry, nothing's wrong. But now that you mention it, maybe something is wrong. It's like, remember, since Sam's been taking care of this place, remember when he was running around with that girl in town who, what do they say? They're like, she skipped town without picking up her last paycheck at the mill. That was strange.
Yeah, I do like that. Like, yeah, they're like, yeah, he was seen with that girl, and he's a little bit weird, right? And then, like, she just disappeared, and he's never talked about it. Anyway, that might be odd. But let me ask you something. So we, as a viewer watching this, we know that she's not crazy, despite what all the other characters think, because she seems overly distraught, and she's saying she's seeing all these things. But we, as a viewer, know she's not, because we're seeing it with her. We're seeing these visions, and we're seeing.
Yeah, we know the mystery she's trying to solve. 100%.
Do you think it would be more effective if we didn't know, if we weren't sure if she was kind of she'd been in a state of mind where she is seeing things? Do you think that would have hindered it, or do you think it would have added to tension?
I don't think you can do that. I just don't think, like, on a show like The Sixth Sense, because The Sixth Sense has this is the formula for this show. It's not like every week you turn in and it's a new crazy person who's going to be proven to be crazy.
That's true. But I mean, maybe it's more of like maybe it's a bit of a challenge for an older show. Do you think, let's say it's a more modern television show, do you think that they could sustain that disbelief longer?
I mean, I think you could do it if this had been a standalone TV movie where you didn't know the formula, I think. I think that's what you normally do, would be like, is she having an episode? But even still, like, you know, when you go see a horror movie or something like that, usually in the first act, if you're being set up as like, maybe she's not right, like, usually by the end, the character's proven to be having a supernatural. Like, it's very rare that you see the movie where the twist at the end was like, it was all in her mind the entire time.
That's true.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's impossible. But I think you're right. We as an audience are like, we've been conditioned all the time. Now it's like, they're gonna learn she's right eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I don't know if it takes away, because I like this episode. It just, while I was watching, I was like, I wonder if, like, there was a way around it, if that would make it better or worse, if, like, they suspended that the viewer's disbelief a little bit longer, of like, maybe something isn't right with her, you know. But regardless,
I will say, to the episode's credit, as we go forward, they do kind of do something. It's not quite a twist, but it's a little bit of a twist on the like formula of the show. Is, you know, Ruth keeps having these visions. as you said, the same like intro, the storm, all the same things, the flowers, the ball, all that stuff from the beginning keeps happening, keeps going down to that open grave. And she finally brings the police over. And she's like, this is what I've been seeing, like, and the police are like, well, you can't really just make accusations based on, like, a dream you had. But they do still bring Sam in to question him about the missing girl. And Sam's just like, I swear, like, that patch of cement in the basement that looks like a grave that's been covered up, that's just a pipe I put in. I really didn't do anything. And, which is actually fairly probably accurate to how small-town police would behave. They don't have any reason to question him, but they keep pushing him until he does break. And he admits there was a girl he was seeing, he was running around with, and he did hit her at some point. He hit her, but he swears when he hit her, she ran away. He didn't hurt her. And they're like, well, you know what? Let's go dig up that grave in the basement and find out if you really did bury someone down there. And this is where the twist was sort of happened, is they go down there and they finally, like, baseball player gets to, like, do something. He hacks open that grave. And there's nothing there. Like, all these visions seem to be leading to the fact that Sam killed, or someone's been buried in the basement, and it really just is a water pipe he's buried down there.
Yeah. So he's guilty of an abusive relationship, but not a murderous one.
This scene was kind of, it's one of those ones that's played weird, because this is where they're, like, really playing. It's like, is something wrong with him? And they're like, he's just like, I swear she ran off. And they're like, did you ever spend the night here, Sam? He's just like, I did, but I never slept in any of the bedrooms. I always slept in the hallway. I'm like, not better, Sam, not better.
I think there's lots of bedrooms you can sleep in.
But at any rate, with the grave dug up to be revealed not to be a grave at all, and the fact that, like, Sam maybe did have a relationship with this person and probably did hit her, but she seems to have just left town. Like, it seems like for everyone else involved in the story, it seems like they're like, this is an acceptable explanation. So Jean, the daughter of Ruth, she's like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And she finally has a confrontation over her mother when she finds her mother standing over Mindy's grave again. And I like it. It's a nice confrontation where she's just like, Mom, my entire life, you've been obsessed with this perfect dead daughter you had, this, like, angel who never did any wrong. Well, guess what? She was a human just like me. She wasn't perfect. And you ignored your living daughter for your dead daughter. And she's like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. Like, I can't take it anymore. And I thought it was actually a surprisingly, like, effective scene of, like, having this confrontation of that they've had their entire life going. I was surprised this episode, like, was able to, like, dredge up this scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so she goes, they get in the car, they take off. The mother's left alone. And I think it gets, like, it's a little bit of time passes.
Night comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like, but suddenly, like, Sam shows up, like, unexpectedly. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm leaving flowers.
Yeah, he's walking around the basement of the house. He's just like, sorry, I came back to drop off the cement to fix the hole. My favorite part of Sam the entire time is just like, I did such a good job with that hole. Now I got to do that work again. He's like, I dropped some cement bags off to fix in the morning, and I also bought you flowers as an apology. He's like, I'm still not sure quite what I did wrong, but I bought the flowers. And so suddenly we see the flowers from her vision are now on the vase, and then the lights suddenly come back on because the electricity has been turned back on. And then you hear the clap of thunder, and you realize just like the vision she had wasn't from the past. She was having a vision of the future. And this is where I think the twist is kind of interesting. Is just like they've really been teasing you with the idea that she's there to solve a crime from the past. And at this moment you realize is like the crime is yet to come.
Yeah, exactly. And because we did see at one point she has an image of herself in the coffin. And that leads, or not in the coffin, in the dug grave, which is read to like what she is seeing as the possibility of her own death is what she's been seeing the whole time.
Yes. Sorry, yeah, we forgot that she does have another vision where it's her after kind of all the confrontations, she sees herself in that grave, and it just leads more mystery. But this is where it sort of like gets caught up. We start realizing what's happening, and we cut away to Jean and her baseball boyfriend, and they're driving away from the house. They're probably like a half hour away, and the storm's rolling in over them finally, and it's kind of I liked it a little bit. Is like Jean's in the passenger seat. She sees the storm coming in, and she's just like, "Wait! As we were leaving, I saw Sam bringing in flowers, and Mom was constantly going on and on about that grave that we dug up, and no one was in it. But we dug a grave. Like we dug. Like this is where Jean sort of puts it all together too. She's just like, oh no, Mom did see something, but what she saw was yet to come. And she starts like begging her boyfriend to turn around and go back. And she's just like, mom's vision was real, but it wasn't about the past or the future. She's begging her boyfriend to turn around, and he's finally just like, okay, we'll go back. I did have Jordan. You're driving a car with your significant other, and she's just like, my mom had a vision, and you're halfway home. You're halfway back to your country house. Are you turning around?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how distraught they are. I mean, how far are we on the drive?
I'm saying you're like halfway back. It's an hour. It's an hour and a half drive. You're 45 minutes into it.
45. If they're really upset, I'd go back. We're an hour and a half. I'd be like, let's see if we can hold it.
So it's more about it's a time thing. It's a time
thing. Exactly.
Are you over the halfway mark?
Yeah, I'm like, look, we've already passed the halfway. Let's just keep going.
We'll call her when we get home.
If she doesn't answer, you're right.
I owe you a Coke.
Exactly. But so she's all worried now. Joan. What's the character's name? The character's name is Ruth. Ruth is all worried that Sam is there to attack her. That's what she's been seeing, but it's not. It's Bill the whole time.
Yes. In the house, she runs into her room to hide from Sam, and Bill lurches out of a corner. He's carrying all of her jewelry in his hands. He's brought no bag for it.
Yeah.
And he's got a gun, so he's just like, well, I guess I'm going to shoot you now to cover up me stealing your jewelry to help pay for my parents in that nursing home. And as he's about to shoot Ruth, Sam leaps out of the darkness with a shovel, and beats him savagely with that shovel.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I mean, it's good he was there with his, I don't know, stupid person strength.
And he saves Ruth, and we cut to the next morning, and it's Ruth and her daughter just talking about, well, it's a good thing that all worked out in the end, huh? And they kind of, they reconcile. And I sit there watching it, and I'm just like, wait, so everything played out, there was no, the visions didn't change the future. Everything just played out exactly as it would have in the visions. So her visions were always just of Sam, because it was always a man in shadows hitting someone with a shovel. So her visions were always just of Sam saving her from Bill?
Yeah, see, what I thought was what she was seeing was she got beaten to death with the shovel by Bill.
Well, that was the implication.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
Oh, so you think... Yeah, I don't know. This is the part that was confusing, because usually what happens is someone has to believe the vision to change the future. And they do the thing where her daughter realizes, oh, it's real, we got to go back and help her. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't get back till after it's all concluded. So really what happens is that the vision comes true, but always in the vision, Sam was saving her by beating Bill with a shovel. She never was going to end up in that grave.
No, maybe the difference would have been that she would have been dead, but Sam would have got there too late to beat him with a shovel.
I guess so, but nothing changed. The daughter didn't change. Nothing changed.
No. You're right. Nothing changed.
There's no moment
another job
where
well done.
You change the future. There's no moment where you change the future. They imply it when the daughter turns around, she's going to come back and alter what's going to happen, but she doesn't get there in time. So everything just plays out like it should have.
I don't think the daughter was ever going to be the one that was going to change it. It was going to be Ruth, I keep forgetting her name. Yeah, Ruth, who was going to change it herself. And I think, yeah, you're right. She doesn't change anything. It's just watching it happen. It's just what is the mystery? But I don't think it was supposed to be that the daughter comes and saves the day. I think the point was the daughter comes back and believes the mom, and they can reconcile over it.
But that's what I mean is in this kind of show, you when you realize it's a premonition and you're going to die in that premonition, you need to do something to change the future. But what we come to reveal is she does nothing happens to change the future. We just reveal that the premonition is she saw Sam beating Bill to death with a shovel.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's crazy. It's such a crazy thing. And then in addition to that, we have a conclusion where she's just the daughter and mother are reconciled. She's going to pay more attention to her living daughter. But I'm just your literal dead daughter is a ghost in this house. You've seen her repeatedly. She was uninvolved in the premonition, apparently. They have established now is that dead daughter is 100% haunting that house. Nothing to do with what's happening this episode.
You know what's funny? I actually kind of forgot about it by the end. I guess I got so invested in them not changing the premonition that I forgot that the daughter shows up. Because I guess the ghost daughter is sort of just a red herring. But it's okay, So like the implication now is you're right. She's just gonna haunt the house. But I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's what she wanted. So it all works out in the end.
She gets both of what she wants. She gets her dead daughter back and her living daughter.
And Sam gets to fix that basement.
Yeah, there you go. But at any rate, that's the conclusion of it. They go back to the set where Gary Collins can interview Jane Wyman, and it's a great interview. Jane Wyman's like, "This is the first thing I've ever done with ESP," and he's like, "Really?" He's like, "You've never experienced it before?" And she's like, "Nope, never heard of it before. Just showed up to set today. They told me it was going to be ESP." But she's like, "You know what? I read a script that said I hear animals have it. Is that true, Gary?" And Gary's like, "Have you ever had a dog that when you come home, it's already waiting at the door for you? How did that dog know you were coming home?" And Wyman's just like, "I don't know, maybe he's hungry. Maybe he's waiting at the door because he's hungry." And Gary's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that's true, too. I guess it could just be the dog's hungry, not ESP."
It was so bizarre. I'll tell you, these bookended interviews are the best thing this show has going for it, and it should just be the show. The show should just be bringing in actors who are kind of confused while they're there, and he asks them random questions about ESP. That's it. That's the show. It's a better show.
This is my favorite one just because it was like she clearly she got a script and they're like, "We've written some things here. Maybe you can say like you've heard of ESP or like a friend's experience." She's like, "I'm not going to say that. I don't know anything about ESP. Just I'm going to say I don't know anything about it. I'll listen to this guy talk about it though." And they're like, "Okay, well, what about if we say maybe dogs have ESP and you can agree?" And she's like, "Well, what if that dog was just hungry? I'm going to say, if a dog's waiting at a door, it's probably just hungry." And they're like, "Okay, well, we'll still like at the end of that, Gary will be like, well, I don't know, could be ESP too." I'm like, "Great, thanks everybody."
He's like, "I don't really know because I'm just an actor who they won't let be in the show."
Gary's great though. He's committed to his role. They said in these interviews, you're on the side of ESP. You believe it exists. You're a supporter of ESP, and he's just like, "Am I in character?" He's like, "No, you're playing yourself." He's like, "No problem."
It's very weird. Again, I don't know if it would be better if he was in character and they somehow had that connected to the show, but I just don't know how you can improve on a confused actress being interviewed by Gary. It's just so weird.
I love it too. Like these tacked on endings. It's nice. Like I love that he sits down with the actor. I love they're playing. They're just like, we're our two actors just talking. We're just two actors talking to each other. But it also, both of the actresses feel like it's just like they shot the episode and a part of the contract was you also have to come back for this weird like talk show interstitial. And you could feel both of them are just like, this is the part I don't really want to do.
Yeah. And they're just like, let's just get through it. They're like, we'll do one take. That's it. You get one shot at it.
Let's go. Yeah, it is amazing. It's so good. I love it so much. It makes me, I know there's one other episode this season where he's not in it, and it makes me want to go watch just the interstitials to see who the poor actress he has to interview is.
I tell you, I am really bummed that that's not the new format of the show because it's just a better show. It really is.
All right, Jordan, let's get to ratings. What do you want to give Dear Joan? We're going to scare you to death.
Well, I think it's a pretty good show, pretty good episode. Again, I think this is better. I wish this is what the show is. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it for sure. I think it's a mess in the way that all episodes of The Sixth Sense are a mess. Like,
yeah.
With or without Dr. Michael Rhodes, like, it's all a bit like weird. It's kind of hard to follow. It all sort of makes sense by the end, but it's like it's it's a bit plotting like all the episodes, which is fine. I forgive it because I know it's a little bit of the era's fault, a little bit of the screenwriting's fault. But Joan Crawford's just really coming in and just like you're watching someone come in who's just such a natural talent, given just like middling material and still just like raising the bar so high. And plus we get the villain who really also like chews that scenery. I'm going to go 6.5.
6.5. We're very close.
And then there's If I Should Die Before I Wake with Jane Wyman.
Yeah. Like, no, I know you're right. After we discussed it, the ending doesn't quite work. More so than I even felt when I watched it. But I don't know if you agree with me. I like this episode more. I felt like it was doing something different, and I liked the structure, even though it's a bit of a mess. I like the structure of this better, about you discovering along with the character what's happening. I like this kind of format better, so I'm going to give this one a little bit better than the last one. Still pretty good, 7.5 out of 10.
Jordan, I agree with you. I actually think this episode is a better structured episode. I think it is far smoother. There's way less. I mean, there's still lots of plotting back and forth, but that's par for the course. But I think it's a cleaner episode. I think it makes more sense. I think, I did just rag on the ending, and I'm not saying I'm wrong about that. Like, I think the ending, if you think about it, doesn't make any sense at all. But like, it still builds to an ending that makes it's a lot cleaner. I think the episode's a lot cleaner. I think what's happening is a lot cleaner. I like it for a lot of those reasons. I think the actress, again, is doing a great job. It's I think a better episode, you're right, than the last one. I think just Joan Collin just going for it like saves that last episode. But I still feel like there's still something. It's still not quite perfect. But I'm gonna go with the same thing. 6.5. I think 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah, I agree. They're both good episodes of this show. I think it's just like this show itself has like these weird flaws just built into its structure.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to know. I'm going to assume neither of these episodes were recut, or do you think these were some of the ones that were recut into the shorter 30-minute episodes?
I'm not sure. I was looking at the Joan Collins one a little bit just because there's a lot of writing around it because it's her final role and there's a lot of fans of it and stuff. And I saw somewhere that there is a feature-length version of the Joan Collins episode somewhere. I could find, other than reading about it, I could find no evidence that's true. But I saw something somewhere that said there's a longer version. I'm not sure if that means someone saw the Night Gallery version and then there's just like typing on IMDb and referring to this one as the longer version. So maybe this one had been mixed up with the Night Gallery one. I'm not 100% sure. But it's hard to know. I haven't done enough research to know exactly which ones ended up Night Galleried and which ones didn't.
Yeah, I'd be surprised that there was a feature length version of this. I'm not sure why you would have shot that with no reason to have it's not like it was going to be recut as a TV movie or something. But yeah, it's funny to see this show with it still has its kind of flaws, like you're saying. There's a weird plotting element to it, and I think you made an interesting point there right at the end about the episode 9 is that it builds to something, which I think is something this show has been lacking throughout so far. It's like it feels a lot like I've kind of ragged on it, complained over the last few podcasts that it feels like Dr. Michael, what's his name? Dr. Michael. He sort of just seems
Rhodes.
to kind of fumble his way through things. Yeah, Dr. Michael Rhodes, as opposed to solving a case and you see it building and building and you go, oh, all these pieces to go together. It's more like he's like, vision, vision. Anyways, it was the rancher the whole time, and I think this last episode 9, at least had something where it felt like the person was solving some sort of mystery in some way. But we'll have to see what the last few episodes are as we wrap up our time on the show.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Rhodes will be back. But I mean, I think you're not wrong. I think it's an issue in that the stories they're choosing to tell are pretty classic ghost stories where one person's haunted and they have to solve the mystery. It only becomes more convoluted when you bring a third party in to solve someone else's mystery because it backseats the person who's having the visions, but then moves a person in who's not having the visions into the role of solving them. So it's just it's not a good fit. Whereas when we see these ones, these are just playing the classic tropes of the person who's having the problem has to solve their own problem, which is just cleaner. It's just cleaner.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Anyway, that wraps it up for this episode. So we'll come back for more adventures of psychic abilities next week. In the meantime, though, we have bonus episodes for charity. Maybe you want to donate to a charity. We've got them all listed on our website. They've all been selected by our past guests. We have this our Continuum Drag official-ish charities. They don't know there are official charities, but they're official to us. If you donate there, you can send us back. You can get us to watch that one other episode where I don't know who the guest star is, but she gets her own episode, no Michael Rhodes. Make us go back and watch that. You make a donation to charity. We'll go back. We'll watch a show from, we do these shows. Sometimes we take the escape pod. Sometimes we're doing a best of. We miss a bunch of episodes. You can get us to go back, watch an episode we've skipped. That's the idea behind it. You can read all about it. ContinuumDrag.podbean.com's the email, the web address, the URL as the kids call it. You go back there. There's an explanation for how bonus episodes of charity work. If you want more of a personalized explanation, you can email us at continuumdrag@gmail.com. We'll tell you all about how you can make a donation to charity and get a bonus episode of your choice. Other than that, though, we're going to have clips from these two episodes on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on all our social media channels. Lots of ghosts, lots of that skeleton. That skeleton in the shower is going to be there.
There is one part, I don't think it will go, but at one point, you see Jason, evil Jason, and he's using his ESP powers, and he's got his fingers on his temples, and you're like, ooh, he's projecting something.
You know he's got ESP.
Yeah. It's better than Dr. Michael, who just walks around and is like, oh, visions.
It did make me wonder if they'd just been doing this for weeks to no success. They hadn't had any like luck at all, but they all just been sitting there rubbing their temples like, I wonder if this is working.
That's a better show.
Anyway, social media. You can see all the clips from at Continue Dragons, the handle there. But that wraps it up for this episode. So, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
See you then.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario, and Seoul, South Korea. Theme music by James Rick Seidler. Produced by Jordan Delick and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes.